and the land is dark, and the moon is the only light we'll see. Oh, be afraid, no, I won't be afraid. Just as long as you stand by me. And I stand by me. Oh, stand by me. Oh, stand by me. Stand by me. With the stars that we look should tumble and fall on the mountains, should crumble to the sea. Oh, be afraid, no, I won't be afraid. Just as long as you stand by me. And I stand by me. Oh, stand by me. Stand by me. For me Good evening, everyone. Thank you guys so much for coming out on this beautiful winter night. No, it's a fall equinox, and it's already time for Christmas lights, it feels like. So for those of you who celebrate the spooky season, please help me hold on to that energy while it's cold. Thank you all so much for being here. I know it means a whole lot to everyone involved in putting on this show. So we're going to get right to it. I'm going to introduce our panelists. First up, we have Pat. Thank you, Pat. We also have Rick. Aaron. Mo. Lisa. Rod. Mike. And Dexter. Thank you guys so much for being here tonight. As we all know, it's difficult to have conversations about important but divisive topics. I believe Breaking Bread Village has created a safe space for voices to be heard, for us to slow down and actually have the conversation instead of running at the speed of Facebook comment threads. And what I think is really beautiful is Breaking Bread has brought empathy and personality, humanity back to that conversation, especially online, which is so impressive. Erin is an impressive woman who has put this together. She's a talented artist and a very thoughtful person. So please continue to give her a very warm welcome as Erin comes down to lead her first live audience of Breaking Bread Village.
One conversation at a time. Breaking Bread Village. One conversation at a time.
Awesome. Welcome everybody. Thank you so much for coming out today. Let me put this mic on. I know I talked pretty loud already. Again, welcome everyone. Thank you all for coming today. I'm just so excited about this. I'm really overwhelmed with emotion right now. I'm a crier, so I'm sorry. So this is something that I envisioned last year, where I wanted a group of us, part of my village, to come and sit down and actually break bread together and have a conversation with respect, with empathy, and love, and to also be able to enlighten each other, because a lot of times we just don't know what other people think because we don't open ourselves up or take ourselves out of our own bubble. So this is an opportunity to do that. So I'm really happy everybody's here today, and let's get started. Sorry, I just had to breathe a little bit. I'm just so overwhelmed with joy. So we're going to get started with our topic. We have I love our panelists today because they come from so many different backgrounds and different perspectives. And that's what I wanted for all of us to be able to, because when we talk to each other and we're all saying the same thing, I mean, that gets kind of boring, right? And I like a little excitement, so here we go. So we're going to just start off here. Our first topic is marijuana legalization. So that's going to be our first topic, and we're just going to just kind of dive into this and kind of see what everybody is thinking. Mo, did you want to start and kind of tell us what you think about marijuana legalization?
It helps me. I have my medical card. I deal with chronic pain in my knees and my hand. Ever since my mom died in 2015, depression, anxiety. I tried prescription medication from pharmaceuticals, gave me nightmares. I just couldn't do it. I feel that if you're using it in the right way, there's nothing wrong with it. Like I watched a documentary God said it best.
Oh, yeah,
Um,
we talked about
He
it.
said you take two people who hate each other, you give them alcohol, somebody's gonna end up dead. You say, take those two same people, give them marijuana, they're the best of friends. Because it mellows you out, seriously. And you love everybody. That's how I feel. I mean, and then if you look at it, let's just be honest. If you look at it, it became illegal because of brown and black people were using it. And they demonized it. They even made it where either it was a man and a woman, they were from Mexico, two different situations, but the mother killed her kids and herself. Okay, she had other stuff on her.
Yeah, yeah,
The marijuana didn't contribute to that.
okay.
Another man went on a killing spree, and they used marijuana. Okay, no. There's other things going on.
So you're for it? I'm taking it.
I look these days because it's legal here. When somebody says they don't do it, I'm going, okay. Because it's legal.
Well,
And there's nothing wrong. I'm not judging, but it's
and
just.
everybody has their different perspectives. Does
Exactly.
anybody else have an opposing, does anybody think that they should use it, or is anybody else for it? I mean, not to say that you do it, but I'm just saying.
I'm for it.
Okay, for it, everybody's for it? Lisa? Sort of?
I don't really have an issue with it. I think the real upside to it being legalized is that, your chances of having something laced with something bad is probably not as frequent, and so.
Which is something that
initially I
is
struggled
happening
with
right
it a little bit,
Mhm.
but, everybody's got their thing, and I know it helps a lot of people, so, for pain and for issues, so.
Sure. Now, I'm gonna ask you, Rich, because you have a, history in law enforcement. Have you seen anything with it where you feel some type of way about it? I'm just curious.
Well, I'm an attorney now, so I'm on the other side of the fence, and
A defense attorney, I want to add.
I'm actually the chairman of the marijuana law committee for the Genesee County Bar Association.
Oh.
So I'm very in tune with what's going on with marijuana laws. I represent a ton of dispensaries and things of that nature. So I have no problem with the legalization of marijuana. I don't use marijuana personally, but anybody that wants to use it, as long as they're abiding by the law, I have no problem.
Awesome. Dexter?
I think the legalization, I feel like so much of what the legalization stuff has been around, there's been a lot of politics and a lot of the grandstanding. And I really think it's been much ado about nothing. I think the states where we've seen legalization, we've seen huge tax booms. We haven't seen like the marijuana as the gateway drug and all of that, kind of drug war and stuff. All of that prognostication ended up not being remotely true. And it's just, marijuana is just kind of taking its place where like in the the pantheon of legal substances, that are that are appropriately regulated. Yeah.
Rodney?
I oppose it, but I do not oppose the medical aspect of utilizing marijuana at all. I do oppose the recreational aspects.
You don't want people to have fun with it, just.
Right.
Okay, and why do you oppose it? I'm just curious.
Well, years ago, I was teaching school back when we just had the caveman. There was a drug program that the state police was putting on. And one of the programs, I was very much into it at the time. And they were teaching young people how drug habits effects on individuals and so on. Marijuana was one of those drugs. And out of that program, eventually the state police stopped the program because what we were doing is educating people on how to use it.
Okay.
And they were abusing it. And so the whole program died. And that was one thing that was quite, myself personally, I was a little bit sorry that I was involved in it. I was doing it for the right reasons, but the results were not that good.
Okay. I respect that. So my next question is about the death penalty, capital punishment. So I just want to say, I want you all to tell what you feel, but I'm gonna tell a little bit about, because this is one thing that I am very strong about. I am not one, I don't really advocate for capital punishment. And I'll tell you why. For me, and I guess even right now, we're seeing a lot of people that they're finding out we're innocent, right? But they're already gone. And that happens because of, false identification. Sometimes, we know sometimes it's political, right? It's like you're getting, and I don't know if you can attest to this as a former law enforcement, but, you get that from the mayor, from top, right? Up top, saying, like, we got to get this solved, we got to get this, this is a lot of buzz in the city. People are scared to walk around. We got to get this done. And sometimes that puts pressure on, like closing the case, right? Yes. So all of these different factors to me, is people's lives. And so I'm not a person that advocates for it, but I'm also, when I look at the other side of it, I've never had anybody's life taken, right, by someone. So I don't know how that feels to want to see somebody die because they killed my, family member. So I don't put any type of judgment on people that feel that. It's just me on the outside of it. I don't advocate for it. But again, I've never watched one of my loved ones be taken away and have to deal with that. So what do you guys think about that penalty?
I'm for it.
For it? Yeah,
I wouldn't use the word advocate.
Okay.
Okay, because that says you actively, sometimes you're gonna be out there actively pushing.
Which some people do.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. I wouldn't use the word. But I do believe that there are some evil scoundrels out there that there is no rehabilitation. And of course, our prison system, in my opinion, does not rehabilitate. Okay? They house people. And it's getting to the point that they're going out and making money off of it by privatizing our prison system. So when you get people who need help, folks are out there, committing some very atrocious crimes, and you see no empathy in them. They feel nothing. And if you put them back out on the street, eventually they'll do it again. When Criminal Minds started, I decided I would not look at Criminal Minds because I did not want to understand how criminals who committed atrocious crimes, I don't want to understand how they feel.
And I love those shows.
But anyway, so I say that there is a place for putting some people to death.
Okay.
But our system is not designed exactly because of what you said. There are so many flaws in putting people in prisons and that we need to stop it.
Sure.
I'm definitely against the death penalty. People who don't have empathy and compassion for the crimes that they've done, that's mental illness. That's something that can be treated. I don't feel that we have the right to determine who lives and who dies, period. I feel that we have a system that we can rehabilitate them, we can give them the medical help that they need, or they need to be stay institutionalized for the rest of their life, and they're institutionalized for the rest of their life, but they shouldn't be institutionalized in a for-profit prison.
Yeah, thank you. Anybody else? Can I say something? Sure.
Well, with being outside attorney, you don't have to worry about the capital punishment because if you hurt somebody I love and care about, I'm coming for you. I'm just being honest because I get this mental illness, but that's somebody I love, somebody I care about that you took away from me before their time. So, and I did turn the other cheek. Sometimes you gotta turn the other cheek and say.
So you're for how to handle that yourself?
Yes. Okay. Because again, is it Ms. Pat?
Yes.
What she said, it doesn't help because you see so many people come out and they're institutionalized.
Institutionalized.
Yes. And they do stuff to go back because they can't make it out here.
Yep.
There are no, like you said, there are no programs to say, okay, we want to make you be able to come back into society and be successful.
Right.
And then don't add it as a Black person. They already have the stigma of being Black. And being born Black, things are already not set up for you to be successful. So then now you go to prison, and now you got that added to it.
So I agree with you all. I agree with both of you all in regards to the system is messed up. I definitely agree with that, and I definitely feel like that is not set up for rehabilitation, for sure. So I do agree with that. Anybody else that's yeah?
I have kind of a question I guess for you. We live, our government is imperfect, and our justice system makes mistakes. And it's always going to make mistakes. And therefore, a government that kills people and is invested in killing people is eventually going to make a mistake and is going to kill an innocent person, which is murder. So how does a government that is guilty of murdering people then have the moral ground to then kill people for murdering people? It's a moral paradox. And is the government's right to kill people, our right to have that catharsis, so important that we are willing to take on the inevitable death of innocence that will result from that?
And that's one of the reasons why I said I would have to take it off the table, because our system is so imperfect, not just a little bit. It is, and I say that, I just, in preparation, I had to kind of study a little bit. Our justice system has been overtaken. I mean, whoever our forefathers, they had a very purist idea when they came up with the Constitution and how all of the government pieces are supposed to work together. Very idealized. And once you throw two-party system and politics in it, imperfection. That's my opinion. When you get that, because they are not thinking like, okay, we've got all these people to protect, and therefore we've got to come up with a system that's going to really meet their needs. They're thinking about, well, I got to keep this person. So we have so I don't think we'll ever have a justice system that is fair. Therefore, there's some folks like you, rather than me go out there and murder them and we put in prison, I'm saying let the government do it. And I know it's imperfect, and I know they're going to kill people. I know they're also going to be murdered. So from that standpoint, that's, it's a, push and pull. But I'm like her. I've never had the experience of having somebody in my life brutalized. So I did have somebody that tried to jump my husband once, and I had never touched a gun at that point. I went out and learned how to shoot.
Well, we're gonna talk about gun control because that's like that. We're gonna get to that. Okay, so I'm clear. Does anybody in the audience, do you all have a thought process on capital punishment?
I was hoping we were gonna ask questions. What is everyone's stance in the case of like a serial killer, where like the risk to the prison staff or the risk to other prisoners is greater than rehabilitation is probably not possible in one of those cases. What is
For me, that would be lifetime rehabilitation. You'd be lifetime institutionalized. You've got the mental health and whatever basic care that you need to live, but we don't put a person to death. I don't think that we have the moral right to ever say who lives and who dies.
So I'm torn on that. I still don't advocate for murder, especially as a punishment of murder. To me, it just doesn't, make sense. But I also, I think it's inhumane to house somebody in a solitary confinement area for 20, 30, 40 years. So I'm torn on that. quite honestly, and I don't know. And again, I've never had anybody that actually have put me in a position to have to really think about it that hard. But just sitting on the outside, I don't believe in murder, and I also don't believe that it's humane to have somebody stay in a small closet with no window.
I'm not gonna pay for that.
No, I'm not saying, no, I'm saying
In prison.
But and to answer her question, if somebody is harmful, right, so they put them in solitary confinement, they don't keep them amongst other people because they're a danger, you know, so I'm torn. Anybody else have thoughts on that? I'm torn.
Well, I'm a constitutional originalist. That's my position. One of the things I looked at, there's some people just can't be rehabilitated. They're beyond those capabilities. There is an element of evil that does exist in the world today. I believe strongly that nobody should be put to death that they don't have at least 2 major witnesses to the event that takes place, or something that's very substantial. Our scientific capabilities today, with their genetics and being able to determine somewhat of the aspects of guilt is really advanced tremendously from the past. I'm kind of like you, Alex, in those movies or those programs on TV.
I
that
saw so many, you just have no idea. Go ahead.
Right. We do have precedents in our Constitution. We do have precedents in other areas that says that if somebody has murdered someone, then that person themselves should lose their life as well. My question, my hesitation, only hesitation would be, yes, there are innocent people that sometimes get caught up in the process. But even getting caught up into the process of being wrongfully taken out, that is what I would strongly be against, is making sure, no question about it, otherwise give them a life sentence and something might turn up down the road that sets them free. And that has happened.
Oh, and then my question is, when do we decide that? Like, how long is long enough? That's always been my question. We all, you know, what is long enough? How do we decide that? Who are the witnesses? Are they credible? Do they have something to gain? You know, so many different dynamics. So this is a tough one because for me, it's very tough because again, you know, so many different parts to it, to where it's like, you know, if a person, you know, it was just a case, 2 weeks ago that it came out where the person was put to death and they found out that they were innocent and the person wrongfully accused them. And it's like you can't get that so bad. It's gone, you know. So I don't know. I'm torn on that. Aaron, you have anything about that?
I'm pretty much with what everyone else has said. It's way too hard, especially the justice that we have today, to put somebody that absolutely know what they did, especially to get down to minorities and the intersection of that. So I'm against it. There's no way to decide that we do it like anybody just said that we can do it.
They want us to lean into the mic. I'll just tell so I can hear a little bit better. Yes.
Before we start asking the question whether somebody should be sentenced to death or not, we should start shaking up the legal system and get that fixed before we.
Agreed.
Oh,
Agreed.
I definitely agree. I agree wholeheartedly. I think that it is really messed up. And it's biased and it's, yes, I agree with that.
We definitely have a 2-tiered system of justice right now.
Yeah.
To the point that it is needs major reform. And the only way that's going to come is if we, the people, stand up and demand that we have equality in the justice system, the scales of justice.
But we have for 40 years, for 50 years, we have stood up and we have wanted reform. And we stood up and we've said, Black Lives Matter. We only have screamed back at us, all lives matter. We stood up and said, our indigenous women are being missing and murdered. But one influencer online goes missing in Montana. She gets found in a week with the attention of the media and the public. But 17 women in Montana that are indigenous have already gone missing this year, and not one of them have been found. And I just don't think that that's a system that's built for all of us. It's a system that's just built for some of us.
The idea of fixing the system. We're saying, fix the justice system. It's not just the justice system. And again, the conversation that we're having, and this was brought on by, the Black Lives Matter and all the new, lots of people are now saying, let's have a conversation. But there are still so many issues out there that people have to come to grips with. Because I am a person of color, the idea of racism that people back away from as opposed to lean into, to have the hard conversation so we can get past this feeling of, I didn't do it, I wasn't there, well, my grandmother did it, that kind of stuff. Until we all, even as Black people, I don't even know what to call myself, African American, whatever. But until we all can have the conversation with me getting so angry about it, and you saying it wasn't my family, we didn't have slaves, until we get past that and just have a dump. Even for, right now it's Muslims and Chinese because of COVID. I wish there was no race at all, that we had not divided people, because just your race is enough to cause people to dislike you. So you can't have the conversation. And so,
It's like, it's like when people say that they don't see color. Well, if you don't see color, then you don't see me.
You don't see me. So I'm just saying, this whole idea of fixing the justice system, it's not just the justice system.
Right.
It's the United States. And the people who live here need to learn how to live together. And then we can start building systems that allow us all to thrive. We wouldn't have to worry about people crossing our border. We got so much land, I drive a lot. We got so much land in the United States, but yet we're sending hate. We don't want people crossing our border. So.
Yeah, so we definitely go down a rabbit hole with that in regards to, so does anybody else have anything to add to that? Lisa, do you have anything to add?
There was a lot there.
Yeah, I saw you positioning, so.
Well, I really was just moving my purse, maybe not at a good time. There was a lot there. So I believe that as far as the death penalty is concerned, I agree with everyone that it's a very difficult topic. I disagree a little bit in the sense that I do believe that there is serious evil in the world, and so I don't think that all of those situations are mental illness. But at the same time, if I had the answers, I would probably be somewhere else, right? I don't have all the answers, but I think that we have to be very, very, there has to be so many checks and balances before you actually take a life. So I don't have the answer on that, but I think that's, there's a lot there. But I definitely, I guess my main point on that is that I do believe that evil exists. And some people, I wouldn't have an issue with some people going if I knew for sure that it was really truly a case of evil.
Yeah, no, and I respect that. I truly do. I really do respect that because, again, I've never been in that situation, so I can't say. And for me, I guess a lot of my perspective comes from working with children, right? I see children who are in some really terrible homes, where their parents are terrible to them, and they grow up with that, right? And they become something else that they weren't originally, right? And so my thing is that now this person is going to get murdered based on something that happened to them that they had no control over. So it's just a lot of parts of that for me that's uncomfortable in regards to ending a life and being the person to say that I think that it's okay for me to make that decision. So the next one is gun control. We're going to move on to gun control and see what you guys feel about the gun topic. Second Amendment and all this stuff that's going on right now, people are kind of, on that bandwagon right now in regards to gun control and, Second Amendment. So, anybody want to start? I have my thoughts on it, but I'll let you.
I believe that everybody should be able to arm themselves however they choose to arm themselves. I'm a firm believer of the Second Amendment.
Me too.
I'm a little bit torn on the issue. I own a gun, I'll just say that, but when people say that they want to arm themselves and do it for defense and stuff like that, I think that's not true in a lot of cases. I know a lot of people own guns and that shoot guns, and most it's a lot about fun. It's a lot of fun and doing stuff with the guns and being able to shoot them and have fun with their friends and stuff like that. And so I think that argument is kind of weak and weird, but I do think you should be able to defend yourself because there is a lot of evil in this world. There are a lot of people that will try to harm you. And a lot of people can't defend themselves, especially disabled, people that are a little bit weaker than other people. But I think there should be a limit on what you purchase and what should be allowed to purchase.
I agree with that.
Is anybody opposed? No, opposed like the some people are against.
What I would say, for me, I mean, I think we can all agree that the Second Amendment is poorly written, right? It's confusing and it's been debated, and whether you're a constitutional originalist or or something else, we can all just look at it and say punctuation is terrible and nobody really knows what it means, and it's been reinterpreted many, many times, depending on what the whims of the current generation are. But to me, separate from that, I get scared when I think it's being taken to this ridiculous extreme, and I start getting scared when I see protests where every single person in attendance is carrying a semi-automatic weapon and they're dressed in Kevlar. And I'm sorry, that to me, that terrifies me. I don't want to be a person walking through that because that's a threat, right? If someone is walking around with a gun, it's a threat. And that makes me feel safe, makes me feel unsafe. And the fact that people are then insisting on doing that, and they're engaging in this act of cognitive dissonance where they're saying, I'm not threatening you. I'm just engaging in my right to be in full tactical gear and wandering around in a Starbucks with 6 physical weapons strapped to my thigh. I don't mean anything by it. I mean, come on, like that is an implicit, it's an explicit threat, and something is wrong in a society where we as society allow that kind of taking it to the extreme to exist. It needs to be fixed.
So I'll say this.
I used to be a very proud NRA member. I would still do it once I send my dues in again. I believe strongly in the Second Amendment. I agree with you. We don't need to be carrying grenades and Kevlar suits and stuff like that, but I definitely believe that we should have the right to self-defense. Right now, currently, most of the weapons that are sold, approximately 50 to 51%, are being sold to women to defend themselves. And I believe that if we're taught how to handle the weapon rightly, when are those occasions? Because you can get in a lot of trouble being quick on the trigger. But learn how to handle guns, learn about the situations, and using it properly, and also knowing your rights and your protections. That is extremely valuable. Too many women, I've read articles on different ones that have been saved because they had a weapon. Sometimes it was a gun, other times it was a different weapon. But there is a need, and that's who's buying the guns today.
Instead of gun control, can we call it gun reform and start reforming it so that there are comprehensive mental health checks and background screens, and then we close gun show loopholes where people can just go into a gun show and get a gun.
So I have something to say about that. This is always my devil's advocate type of thought process with that. I grew up in the inner city. Most of the people that had guns did not go to Dunkin' to buy a gun and go through the paper check and all that stuff. They got it other ways. So that's the part where I'm kind of torn in regards to, yes, I do believe there should be some type of reform, okay? But most of the people people that I knew that got guns didn't go that route anyway. So how do you fix that, right? And I will say my part about, if a person should have a gun or not, I do believe in being able to protect yourself. I do believe in that. I think that in this world, as we talked about crazy, you need to be able to protect yourself, but I do believe that you should do it in a safe way. And you should go through the right channels. But again, most of the people that I knew that had guns as children or as young adults, they never went to a sports store to go and make the call and see if they were okay to buy the gun. So how do we fix that? Do you have any thoughts on that, Rick?
Well, I got a couple thoughts. First of all, I mean, I have no problem with people owning guns, clearly. But I'm a little bit, I know lots of people with a CPL. All right, well, one of the problems I have with the CPL is the training. I went through the CPL course, and there's no training. All right, it's very limited. You get a cursory overview of the law. You get a little bit of a gun handling session, and then you shoot 30 rounds into a paper plate, and you get your CPL. You know?
For those who don't know what CPL is, it's concealed carry.
Concealed pistol, that's correct, sorry. And, you know, so, I mean, now you've got somebody out here running around on the street with a gun in their pocket who had, you know, a few hours of training and have never shot their gun since or before probably. And, you know, they're gonna pull it up and win. And you know, they don't have the proper training for it. And I'm not advocating for like just police officers to have guns or anything like that. But it just needs, we need to do some kind of training, some kind of checks and balances, something for the renewal. You know, I mean, if you renew every 5 years and you don't have to do anything in 5 years, so you carried your gun for 5 years, you've never used it, you've never gone to the range, and then you just send in your $115 and you get a new license. Right. You know, and you know, one of the big things, if you're going to carry a gun, you need to know how to retain it, right? So these people pull a gun out, they don't know anything about it, so it takes.
Well, isn't that? I was going to ask you that because they said that's a high percentage of what happens to people. Most people that don't know how to use guns, they get them, you can take it from them anyway, and then it use up on them. So I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah, so you need to be able to, you know, there need to be some training in gun retention, you know, as well as, you know, how to use it properly and safely, because I think a lot of these people don't have enough proper training.
Yeah, they're getting them out.
I have to agree. I got my CPL a number of years ago. I had one for quite a few years, let it lapse and got it back. But the training it really isn't good. And I've handled guns all my life. I've hunted all sorts of different game and animal stuff like that with rifles and so on. There's something about a pistol that makes me nervous. And I have a lot of respect for it, more so. I have with a rifle as well, but there's something about a pistol that it just, to me, there's more kind of an edge or a fear of not handling it properly. And that's where the training comes in, and going out and target practicing and using it rightly and going through the different processes of what things can occur. The training is very poor. It really is extremely poor.
Do we have any questions from the audience?
Okay.
Any questions? Yeah.
It's actually not a question, it's a comment. Sure. We're the country with the most school shootings. So until we can come up with a foolproof system that ensures that my kid can go to school and come back safely, you know, yeah, there needs to be serious gun control.
Yeah, no, I agree. And again, a lot of the people that get those guns don't go and get them. Right. So that's the part that's the tricky part for me is how do we solve that? Because they're getting it. I mean, you go, and this is, and I don't know if you want to go with this or not, but I know it to be true in some cases. But I mean, you go to Chicago, they find crates of guns just in the like literally in an alley, and you know who is dropping off these guns. So I mean, they're getting guns different ways. So that's the part where it's tricky for me. Is how do we solve that problem? Because I mean, most of those people aren't going to get them where somebody can say, wait a minute, he shouldn't have a gun or she shouldn't have a gun, you know? So I agree with you. I agree with you in that regard.
I think it would be very helpful actually to switch the narrative on that and start going, you know, because this is the thing. You want to go after people that are law-abiding citizens. You know, there are a lot of hoops to jump through to get a gun, but the criminals don't jump through any of those hoops. So I think if we could switch the narrative and start to look at how we could address that, then it would help all of us feel a lot more comfortable.
But the criminals are not committing mass, what we're calling criminals. They're not the ones going into the schools and killing people. And they are getting the guns legally, okay? So that's the part I see in the news that frightens me to death. And I start looking at gun reform is a very, very good term now because certain terms turn people off so they don't want to look at it. But if I'm saying that there are too many high-powered weapons and the ones that shoot a lot of bullets, so you know I don't know nothing about it. I don't have the terminology. But today, Tennessee, Kroger's, there's some food out there shooting people. Because mentally, I don't care if you're mad at somebody, whatever. But there's too many guns. And let the criminals, the ones who are out there stealing, let them have the guns. I'm saying it's these average, everyday people. I come from Texas. So they can carry guns. They don't have to do anything. People are walking around with guns strapped to their sides. That is scary. Okay? It's like a Wild West show in Texas. So I'm not talking about the crooks who are out there, you know, going out, even the drug, I'm not the drug cartel, let them shoot each other. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the everyday people. Go ahead.
If you want to get rid of the crates of guns on the streets that are being obtained illegally, then decriminalize drugs and decriminalize sex work.
That's all.
Once you decriminalize those aspects of the law, then the criminal element of it disappears.
I've been around a long time. When I went to school, I got my gun training. In the school.
In high school.
In the high school, absolutely. I brought my rifle to school when I was in high school, and nobody said a word. Yeah, we kept them in the back of our cars or whatever. If we wanted to show our friends, there was no big deal. What has changed?
Mental health.
What has changed?
Courtney, you had a
Yeah, I was gonna say, I have the same comment as far as, numbers, so for me, it's not a question of, is it yes or no, or is it right or wrong, and how do you police it? In the 2021 article, between 2009 and 2018, there were 288 school shootings in the United States. In Canada, there were 2, that was the next highest country in G7. In France, there were 2, in Germany, there were 1. So in the G7, the other countries over those 10 years had 5. And we had 288. So to me, the question is, we're getting it wrong.
As somebody who is in high school, all the way from middle school to my senior year of high school, I was severely bullied from the moment I got on my school bus till the time I got home. I understand why shooters can go to schools and shoot other kids, shoot up the school, because kids can make other kids' lives hell. Not one professional in my school in the 80s stepped up and stood up for me, stopped the bullying or anything, because I always said I'd never go to my high school reunion without a bomb strapped to my back, because that's how they made me feel. So maybe if we address bullying, we address the socioeconomic disadvantages between individuals. We lift poor people up out of poverty, so we don't have some kids going to school with Nike kicks and other kids with Bobo shoes, you know, and make things a little bit more equal across the board, take away the mean aspect of everything. People stand up for other kids that are being bullied, or professionals step in, and we probably see some school shootings disappear.
Yeah, I agree with you in regards to that. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I was gonna say, people understand laws a lot of times. The problem is, when you go to harsher law, like gun law, for instance, you know, once you get into a law, break it up, and it's all kind of other stuff that gets dumped in that you're not aware of. Like, some of the concepts are ridiculous, like, you know, consulting with somebody's ex before they get it done. Now, I can understand if somebody had a history of domestic violence, you know, who don't have an ex that call you, no, he don't need no gun. That's where it never gets anywhere, because all this other stuff gets thrown into it, and once it's broken open,
my question is along with what you said of bullying. Obviously, that's something that a lot of administrations are starting to focus on. Okay, seeing the signs of bullying, but at the same time, shouldn't they also take a look at the signs of the kids that obviously are being bullied with the struggle of, okay, they're having the thoughts of attacking another school member or something? Because it's like the frustrating part is these shootings happen, but then we look back and it's like, oh, well, you know, so-and-so heard someone else say that they're feeling this way, or it's like we're neglecting the fact that there are signs before it happens.
Yes, and that we're not giving enough mental health, or giving enough to public school systems. 2 guidance counselors for an entire high school, that's ridiculous.
Yes.
It's absolutely ridiculous and it's unacceptable.
And, you know, and I like what you said about trying to equalize, you know, the playing field in regards to things. I remember even when I was younger, I went to a school that wore uniforms. That was something they tried to do to make it look a little bit more, you know, but even that, kids would still get bullied because somebody else would get their uniform from this store, then somebody else would get theirs from Walmart, this person would have holes in there. So I think it goes back to like a moral thing, right? Like teaching like an inner thing, because people are going to be people regardless, you know, and it's sad, but
But there's professionals that are, I know, Everest and Mr. Fox and all the teachers stood out in the hallways as we would change classes. They saw everything that happened, and one teacher, stood up for me and did one thing. I probably would have come out of high school a lot better person than what I left it as.
yeah. I'm sorry that happened to you. Yeah, that's 30%. Question back there.
Just a real quick thing, I think that what you're saying is right. Mental health, that's a big thing that has come to light over the last couple of decades. But with mass shootings, I think this is a hot topic for a lot of people. What is your stance on automatic, semi-automatic? Because what you guys are talking about are pistols and rifles. What about, you know, more guns? That's what they're for. So what is your stance on that?
There's semi-automatics have been around for ages. It's the automatic weapons that we have outlawed that people can't have, but semi-automatics they've had. There's a lot of semi-automatics used in target practicing, sporting events. There's semi-automatics used in hunting, legitimate hunting. It's still the person pulling the trigger. That's the real problem. That gun can sit in a corner all day long and not harm a single person. It's what's going on in the mind of the person. It's the individual decisions that's made that has harmed other people, and there's got to be some way to identify that. I'm in a school every day. Every single day of the week I'm in a school. And I'm in the hallways, I see it. They are working on bullying. They are doing things to stop that in the schools. If I see it, I'll deal with it. And so will all the other teachers that I know that are in the school will deal with that issue right away when they see bullying. And they take it very seriously. And I think part of it is because of the events that have happened in the past, but it's been ignored.
I have something to add on that. You talk about how you're in school and they deal with bullying severely, but how are they going to deal with someone that could be a mass shooter? Are they just going to say you can't have guns? And how are they going to figure out who these people are and what they are? Because you're not a criminal until you commit a crime. And so a lot of these people that commit mass shootings, they are getting their guns legally and they are going through these background checks. Like when I got a gun, they didn't ask for my mental health, they didn't ask for my background, things like that. And obviously I don't have a history, but a lot of these people don't until they do it. And so I think it's really hard. And I think what it really comes down to is how are you going to assess mental health to own a gun? I think that really is the issue.
I'm very cynical about American gun culture. And to me, I think it comes down to gun culture, not gun reform or gun laws, or that. I think the important thing is that we all just need to realize and accept that we are inheriting a culture that goes back several hundred years as a frontier nation and a nation that it was born in violence, and that we armed our police early, often and significantly, and that there are countries around the world that chose a different path. And because of that, they're culturally different. There are nations where police don't carry guns, and those countries, they have a different approach, and they have just as many bad people and criminals. They have the same issues that our society has, but they just dealt with it culturally differently. And ultimately, what we have accepted, what we have decided, is that there is a price that we pay for our ability to arm ourselves in whatever way we see fit without limit, and that is a certain level of death of children and innocence. And that we just accepted that as the price that we are willing to pay for that freedom. And until we are no longer willing to accept that, there won't be any change.
A lot of claps on that, but I disagree with you. If you take a look at the deaths of people, you look at the amount of deaths, you would be killed with a hammer just as easy as you would, more so than a gun. No, I have studied this. I have done the research on it. People have been killed with hammers, knives, table knives, you name it, ball bats. If they're bombs, if you've got evil in your heart, you're going to find a way to do something, to do harm, sometimes more than just a few.
So we have a question.
I have something to add. May I add it? Sure. Okay. I'm just going to stretch a little bit here and kind of go along with the mental health component. I'd love to live in a world that doesn't have guns and violence and evil. And I do think sometimes there's a difference between mental health issues and evil, but I'm not really sure when that turns. And what I will say is we have a lot of work to do around crisis care and supporting our children and our staff and that in the schools with emotional intelligence all around, not just the kids. Okay, because when you talk about how those kids are being severely dealt with, and I'll share a story. One of my kids overheard somebody talking about shooting up the school. He shared it with me privately. I kind of freaked out. It was like, I was at a medical appointment. I said, a family member, can you get him so I can talk to him and figure out what's going on? Is this something that needs to be reported? So we reported it. So they did their thing, right? And they, instead of waiting for me to get home and be with my son and talk to them, 6 cop cars show up at my house when I'm not there. They say they want to know what's going on when he's the one that did what we're told to do. Report it. Say something. Do something. 6 cars at my house waiting for my son. They wanted to get him, but he lied about it. He didn't. And you know what happened after they figured all this out? They had some darn loopholes. It was a good thing that happened, even though the kid that said that was actually just playing around. He just had some shells in his pocket. He had been talking about it at a park the other day. They were trying to get him and go around me and do something that was shady. I know I'm saying this publicly, so if you hear me, that's fine. And trying to get something on him that was, it doesn't matter to me. I said to his face. Like he had done something illegal. This is what one of our youth got for doing what we're telling them to do to prevent these school shootings. So there's a lot of work that we have to do around crisis care and emotional intelligence, not just for these kids, not just for these people shooting, but the whole society and the people that are dealing with them. This is a deeper issue than the guns. It's the guns, but it's way deeper than the guns.
Hold on real quick, Riley. Video.
Yeah, I was gonna say, and this is just me thinking out loud, there needs to be more assessment in schools. Starting with, for the kids as far as, something maybe anonymous, the board is something to figure something out, where they can have, like they do all other kind of assessments for education. They need to do that for the mental health of the kids, the social aspects of the whole thing. The bullying does need to be addressed. It needs to be they need to have an outlet as where they can express this and not feel like if they do, they will be attacked or there will be some repercussions, for them. Then also they need to look into the homes. Your kids learn what your parents teach, be it verbal or non-verbal. You have parents who were bullied, like this gentleman said, he was bullied throughout middle school through high school. Like, it's stupid. Parenting skills. A lot of people have children and they're horrible parents. They just lay down, you speak and rude, and that's
molested, and all these other things that add to their mental and emotional anguish and frustration. And it's going to pour out some kind of way. It's a cry.
Yeah, I will say this, I work in the school system, and I agree with you what you're saying. I will say this, and I know I have some other people in the audience who work in the school system as therapists and different things of that nature, and teachers. A lot of times, your hands are tied, right? As therapists, as psychologists, as whatever, within the school, even teachers at times, you do see things. I mean, kids show you stuff all the time when they're crying out for help. You report it to the people above you, right? You tell them, I think this child is crying out for help. I think they need some intervention. And a lot of times, you're within that system trying to fight and advocate. They're not fighting with you. So, I mean, it's hard, because there are teachers that see stuff. There are teachers that say it and say, hey, this child, something about him or her is not quite right. There's something about him. And you have to go through all these different loopholes and different, you're up against the wall. So it's really sad. So I do believe that we do need to look at the whole system as a whole.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that very thing. There's many students when you have them in class long enough, something isn't quite right there.
Right?
That there's something going on in them that needs to be looked at. And some come right out flat out and say it, yes, absolutely. And the teachers can report that stuff. And I do know, that at least in the case where I have been at, that they've followed up on it. But we don't have all the answers either.
Yeah,
There's limitations.
These are tough topics. It's hard to give a flat out answer and solution.
I would just add, I think we have to be really careful looking at everything strictly through like a mental health. And then it almost blames the victims of the shooters as opposed to the kid or person or adult who's doing the shooting. As if like, if those kids were nicer, they wouldn't have been shot. And a lot of times that isn't the case. We kind of did that with Columbine.
I don't think anybody said
murderers. We look at these murderers as victims when in actuality they're the murderers. So while like mental health is really important and we do need to talk about that, if we had less guns, less available to people, we would have less gun violence. We just would.
Can the young lady speak over here? She's had her hand up politely for quite a while.
Going back to what she had just said, I struggle with mental health, but I've been bullied in school because I live in a predominantly white town, being a biracial person, and I've never in my life thought about harming another kid at my school, no matter how much they have bullied and put me down.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it's really just, if they've been bullied so badly, or if they could just be an evil person. So how do you answer that when it isn't always a mental health issue, it is just a person having psychotic tendencies and psychotic.
A lot of times is the people who are doing the bullying to the kid who's being bullied, they've also been bullied at home as well. I ran into my worst bully in high school checking me out at Aldi a month and a half ago. She made my life hell. She was the group of the 4 girls that made my life hell. And, I didn't confront her or anything, but I went off when I went home on Facebook to a friend, my friend group, and they had said, well, her life was really bad. She was bullied as well growing up, but she had a bully of her parents. She had a bad childhood, she had a bad this. And so if we start addressing, the socioeconomic disadvantages between people, and we start looking at people about poverty, and we start looking at mental health, and we start educating people on our epigenetics, then we can start off with a better society when we all start to understand that we are a culmination of all of the experience of all of the people who came before us. It's encoded in our DNA. Our personalities are not just nurture, they're also nature. And science has proven that.
I second that. I think, wouldn't it be great, you kind of responding to that comment about about mental health of perpetrators and victims. I would love if we could get to a point where we wade into the complicated understanding of having to weigh the totality of a perpetrator. Someone who inflicts violence on other people, and having to understand where they came from, and having to, and get it into how incredibly complicated that is. Wouldn't it be wonderful if we were sophisticated and elevated enough that as a society that we took all of those things into consideration in how we decide, bringing this all the way back around, how we decide whether or not we're going to kill that person as a government?
Yeah, no, yeah. Question to that?
Just a comment. I mean, when we talk about mental health, you make it sound like it's just so simple and you could just identify it. But how many of you have had a family member who committed suicide or had a serious mental health issue and you didn't know? You lived with that person. You loved that person. You thought you knew everything about that person. And all of a sudden you find something out. So it's not easy to identify that. That's not the easy answer. Simply taking guns away isn't the easy answer either, because how would you literally do it, right? It'd be great to go to ground zero and start over again. That's not a reason not to do it, but there's no easy choice here. And to just say, oh, well, we'll just pick out the people that have mental health issues and we'll help them. Well, good luck finding them, because we miss it all the time.
No, yeah, I agree with that. I want to get to the next topic. I know because I can talk about this all day, for sure. But I do want to talk about our thoughts on spanking. That's something that I wanted to talk about, because I don't know how y'all was raised. Okay. And I'm looking for I don't know how you all were raised, but I just wanted to talk about, if you still follow the same way that you were raised, and again, I don't know how you were, but I know how I was in a traditionally Black home. But I want to know what your thoughts are on spanking. And I want somebody that a little quiet here. Rick, what's your thoughts on spanking?
I'm for it.
Okay.
I got whipped as a kid, and I spanked my kids growing up, and none of my kids have been in jail. I didn't go to jail. I think there's some merit to it. I think it can be overdone, obviously, but I think when it comes to just disciplining your children, I have no problem with a couple swats on that.
Well, I have to interject this first. When you first sent me the text about spanking, that's all you said was spanking. And I was like, this is going to be an interesting conversation. But then when I got the email, I was like, okay. But again, growing up, single Black mother, didn't play. We always say, put the fear of God in me. And it wasn't abuse. When she spanked me, we say, that's sorry. But I knew I did something. It wasn't just her taking her frustration out on me. It wasn't her taking her anger out on me. I knew I did something. I raised my kids the same way. They tell you no, I'm crazy. And just because they're older, they know that respect is still there. They know not to try it. But everybody's different. Some kids don't need that. Some kids you can sit down and say time out or however you raised them. So it's getting to know your kids, because even at a certain point, we didn't need to get spanked. We learned from it because we just want to. Never mind, I was going to go somewhere else with that. But who just wants that? Because you feel not bad in a shameful way, but you just like, oh my God, I disappointed mom, or I disappointed dad, and
Yeah, so I have different thoughts on spanking. I'll get to mine in a minute, but Aaron?
I was just gonna say, this all comes back to mental health. Like Rick said earlier, he spanked his kids, he got spanked as a kid, I got spanked as a kid, and none of us grew up to be murderers or in jail or anything like that. But I don't think that's the end of all be all. It comes down to, did it really affect your child, and do you know how it affected your child? And I think that not enough has been done to figure out what exactly are the effects on someone. Like, you're hitting your child. Like, at the end of the day, even though you're not thinking about hitting your child, you are hitting them. And I was spanked when I was a child, and it's easy to say that you learned your lesson. But it's easy to say that you learned your lesson afterwards, but did you, or did you just find a way not to get caught? And is it really working? And is it really working at the end of the day? And personally, I'm probably the not as I'm closer to being spanked than anyone probably in this panel, but so I guess my bias, but I don't think I would spank my kids. I don't have any kids or anything like that now, but I just personally, in my mind, I just, I gave life to this child that I don't like.
So I'm gonna get to you, Sarah. I just wanna quickly tell, typically on here, I like to just let you guys talk, but since we're all kind of here children today, you know, I do want to share my thoughts on it. So, I got spanked as a child. You know, I was a very active. I was always a very curious child and asked a lot of questions and got into a lot of mischief. So with that said, and you know, when my children were younger, I did spank them a little bit, not as much as that people told me I probably should have. Now in my growth, I do not agree with it for myself. Just because, I don't know, I think about the idea of, I was in a domestic violence relationship. And whenever that person was upset or didn't do something quite right and you went against what they thought, you would get hit from it. And it's the same idea for me when it comes to even with parenting, where it's the idea that you didn't listen to me, you didn't, you know, and I'm kind of like over you and you're under me and that you're not listening. So I have to hit you to make you kind of do what I want you to do. And for me, it's just kind of like, I don't know if that sits well with me as more, you know, even when I think back to like slavery, I don't like to make this comparison often, but I just think about it in regards to, especially in a lot of traditionally Black homes, spanking is like, you know, I mean, yes, and you know, I just wonder, you know, if it's this thing of like forcing somebody into submission to make them do what you want them to do, and then also not looking as a child as a human being and not somebody that, well, I gave life to you so I can take it away, I can do whatever I want to you. I just think that's kind of an abuse of power, in my opinion, and just in my growth. You have a question, Miss Sarah?
Actually, I was gonna say something. As a child, I'm like, what? You're gonna spank me? You're gonna hit me? Huh? And like, why does the parent get all to say that's not fair?
No, but she said not worth it. You know, you know, and I understand that. That's something that I really grapple with because the idea that because I'm in this position, I'm able to hit you. And I mean, sometimes those hits are, I mean, they're hard. You know, I mean, you get welts, you get all kinds of stuff. And then I think back, did I actually learn from that to where I was rehabilitated, or was it, or was it where I just learned how to do it, and I became very good at doing it different ways so that I didn't get hit. So I really didn't learn anything. I just did not like the being you know, hit. So it's not really a thing where I feel like I learned something or was changed. Sarah?
Thank you. I'm actually going to talk two parts. One, as a child who was spanked, and also as a parent of a child who I don't spank. The first part of it, I had both of my parents spank me. One, you know, did it in moderation, as you said, and one left bruises and was angry and with it. I agree with you guys. Like, did I learn anything from it? No. You know, you just get sneakier. You know, it's like I let my kids lie. I let him get away with like a little lie here, you know, because I don't want him to learn to get better at lying to me, like kind of a thing. But no, I'm not. I've never been in jail. I've not murdered anybody, but I also have depression, anxiety, complex PTSD, suicidal ideation. I'm 35 years old. I haven't talked to my dad in 12 years, and he still like traumatizes me from what he did. As a parent of a child who I don't spank, isn't because I'm not going to be like my dad. It's also scientifically, your frontal cortex isn't fully developed until you're 25. Your frontal cortex is connected to your emotional responses. So if my son, when he was 5 years old, trying to negotiate with him, he's throwing a tantrum, he is not making a mental connection to his emotions. He cannot emotionally regulate, and me spanking him isn't going to teach him that. It's about patience. I don't treat him like a child. I treat him like a person. I tell him my two most important jobs is to keep you safe and to teach you to be a good grown-up. And if I'm spanking him because he's emotionally reacting to something, because he's not listening, because he's in this world without consent, and he's learning and trying to figure out how to be in it. And the person who's here to guide him reacts to his struggles and discoveries and mischief with violence is not going to help him grow beyond those blocking points, those emotional breakdowns.
Right, right.
I grew up in a family, 7 kids. And of course, it was a typical Black family. But when you got 7 children and you're trying to clean, do all the things that have to be done, a good whooping goes a long way. And I'm not talking about beating. Right. My dad, when he whooped us, he would cry with us. And I know, he would cry, and afterwards, if there were whelps, if he used a belt, he would put alcohol, and he'd sit and he'd talk to us. But you had to have done something really bad. You had to have done something that was disobedient. They didn't have time, they didn't have the patience to sit down and talk you through it. With my son, I had 1 child. And my spanking got his attention early on. And I did not have to do very much after getting his attention. But what I did do as a result of, I was very afraid of getting spanked, of getting whooped. Scared me to death, to the point that I committed the cardinal sin. I ran from my mother. Which meant when she called me, she whooped me good. I never had and I never did anything after that. But with my son, I made a conscious decision to stop hitting him around the age of, I would say about 5 or 6. Because I realized that when I hit him, when I whooped him, he oftentimes made me angry because he disobeyed the rules. And it was disrespectful. And that's something, again, in the Black family, I don't care who you are. Yeah, you're a child. And until you can take care of yourself, you respect me. So when you disobey me, you disrespect me. So when I whooped him, I was doing it at a point when I was angry, and it scared me because I almost jerked his arm out of place. And I committed to myself, okay, that's it, Pat. You can handle this another way. When we were growing up, we didn't have anything. We never heard the thing time out. We never heard, that was not a term. I'm 71 years old. That was not a term in my growing up.
And at that time, it was a cultural thing.
Yes.
I mean, that was the cultural thing at that time.
Yeah. So with my son, and we weren't rich. We didn't have a lot of things. So there was nothing you could take away from me, okay, to hurt me or to cause me to change my behavior because you took it away. We didn't have that. We shared Coke bottle dolls. Does anybody, y'all know what that a Coke bottle doll is? You take some straw, undo a rope, take the straw and stick the rope and everything in the bottle, and you dress them up. That's the kind of dolls we had. So we had, each of the 7, we had 1 pair of skates, 1 bicycle. So you couldn't take away our VCR and our TV. There's nothing to take away. So with all of that, I said to myself, Pat, you're going to allow your son to have a voice. He couldn't disagree. He could disagree, but he couldn't be disobedient. And I didn't spank him after he was 5. But that also took a lot of patience on my part. I only got the 1. I was divorced. He was my best friend. So I could take the time to do it. So there's a lot of, in my opinion, psychology in raising children that not all parents have access to.
Well, and that's a whole other part of that, yes.
And spanking, you get a good whack on them and they gonna stand up and pay attention.
Yeah, I had the Board of Education apply to my seat of knowledge a number of times. And it was the Board of Education, because it taught me to do what was right and to obey my parents, and it did me no harm. There is a difference between abuse and discipline.
Where is that line at? That's always my question. Because people say that all the time. That's always my question is where is that line?
The line is when you lose your temper.
Who decides that line?
You don't discipline when you're really angry.
Beat as hard as you want, as long as you don't lose your temper.
No, because your love won't allow you to abuse, but your anger will take over and do it. You should never discipline when you're angry. You discipline after you've settled down, and then you discipline.
And see, for me, as a person that's been spanked, that's watched other people been spanked, that spanked herself when my children were younger, oftentimes it's not just anger, sometimes it's fear. If they go touch that something on the stove, you think they about to burn themselves, you hit them because of your fear. That's something that you're dealing with. And so for me, a lot of times it's reactionary. And for me, I just don't think that when you are this big person, I just don't think that it is teaching them the proper thing when you hit them to make them do what you want them to do. And that's just my opinion. And I get it, because I was spanked. I grew up in the whole culture of being spanked, and I get the idea, and I get what you're saying. But really, what stuck out to me was when you made the comment about how after you were looked at times, coming like dress it up for you, cry with you. That's how an abuser does too. And I'm not trying to equate the two, but I'm just saying for me, that's the same type of thing. It's that idea that I'm sorry that I hit you. Why are you sorry if you're not doing anything wrong? And that's the part that I struggle with. That's for me.
You said you didn't think that was the proper way to teach it. And to me, that's what it always comes down to. Why do we change the rules when it comes to the people that we have power over? You know, if I hit my spouse, that's abuse. If somebody else hits my kid, they're going to jail. If I hit somebody else, right, I'm going to jail. Somebody else hits me, I'm going to press charges, right? We don't hit people, right? How many times do I say that to my kids? We don't hit people. And if I'm not willing to back that up with my own ability to restrain myself and try to come up with different strategies for how I connect with my kid and how I discipline my job, then I'm not being consistent in the message that I'm giving to him about the type of person I want him to be out in the world in terms of how he interacts with others.
It takes work, right? I mean, it takes work, and that's the part where I'm willing to put in the work to teach them the proper way without. And that's just my opinion. Like I said, I respect everybody's personal opinion. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, I don't know what I gotta say, like, I have 2 kids, and I mean, I absolutely understand the impulse.
Oh,
and if I had been in a house, if I had 7 kids, like Pat, oh my God, Pat, like, if I had grown up in that house, your parents, man, they deserve a Nobel.
But you come in, like you said, sometimes like you know, being in poverty, not having, that's stressful. I was a single parent for a very long time. That's stressful as heck, okay? And so there were times where, yes, when I'm stressed out and I'm tired, I've worked 2 jobs, I'm working all day, and I come home and y'all done ate something I told you not to eat. Yes, I want to tear the whole place apart. But is that fair? That for me to put my frustration or what my life has been created as on children that cannot defend themselves, they can't hit me back, you know, but I'm allowed to hit them. So that's my thing. Yes, ma'am. And then we'll go to the next.
I have a question for you two. When you say that there was nothing that, like, you guys were hit as kids and you guys hit your kids, are you sure nothing was wrong? Are you sure that you guys are completely fine? Are you sure your children are going to be completely fine? Or are they just not sharing that with you? Because I know for a fact that if I were to hit, my mom never hit me in the chest, but my dad, who's older, definitely would have. But for you too, like, how do you know that your kids weren't deeply impacted and won't want to talk to you ever again after they get out of your house?
I've had conversations with my kids. I'm an empty nester, and they told me, they're like, because I asked them, because like Aaron said, you know, we're always supposed to be growing. and running. So I had an epiphany of, because in the Black family, when a child questions, you look at it as disrespect. And it's not disrespect because the child is curious. They want to learn things. So I learned that as being older. So I went back and I apologized to my kids and said, you know, let me know. Did you have any trauma from this? You know, I said, because that's how I was raised. I said, but now I see that you asking questions wasn't being disrespectful. And they're like, no, Mom, we know that when you did discipline us, it was, you know, it wasn't you were taking your frustration out or anything like that. So I did go back and have those conversations with my kids.
Yeah, I was just gonna say basically the same thing. My kids are all grown. We had conversations all the time. We have a great relationship. My kids are fine. So there was no adverse.
It's interesting to kind of think about, like as a kid, I grew up being spanked too, you know, and it's interesting to kind of think about how, I mean, how, to me, I don't consider it traumatic. Right? For me, my memory, yeah, we had the wooden spoon, right?
I ran from her. Jumped, ran.
But at the same time, my dad would like to tell me the story about when he hit me good, he slapped me and said, hey, knock me down and filled down between the walls. And then I was really so mouthy, right? First thing I said when he did that was, it's not going to work, Dad. And he had this kind of epiphany. He was like, you know what?
She had to stop because she kept hitting, and I would jump, and it would hit her. She was like, "Get it."
But it is interesting to think, like, you know, as a person who was spanked myself, you know, it's interesting. Like, I have a wonderful relationship with my dad, and I are really close, you know, and I don't consider me being spanked as a kid being a traumatic experience. But I don't know I don't know what the difference is between my experience and someone else's experience. Maybe, you know, and I can't quantify that. I don't know. That's an open question.
Yeah. I know we have one more comment, well, two more comments, and then we'll do the three. Because I know it's getting late, because I can talk about these things all night, and I'm pumped up, so I'm not gonna keep you guys all night.
Well, coming up, you know, I had a difficult childhood too coming up in Detroit. You know, our father, you know, he was kind of a rebel, gangster guy in Detroit or whatever. So every time I hear about him back in prison for shooting somebody, or you know, he's supposed to come pick us up and never arrive, I'll be a mess to deal with for 2 or 3 days, upset. You know, and I would end up getting with it. But you know, this instance is just like with children. You know, you hit upside the head, you can't go to school for 2 or 3 days. You know, back in the day, old school daycare, you can get in the scroll with a buckle. You know what I mean? That type of stuff. And after a while, it got like kung fu training. It was like, okay, we taking it to the street now. And that's how we thought we should deal with problems, even as kids. People see us coming down the street. Because it's like, okay, you saying something you don't like, you're doing something you don't bother, but that's what we learned. You know what I mean? So I don't always agree with that, because you can have the right intention and keep on left or right. You see hurt, you know, you hear about it all the time, people bury their kids.
Yeah.
You know, when you catch them upside the head or they fall and you kill them by mistake, it's just the benefit is nowhere near, you know what I mean?
Right, that's true. Nicole, I think?
I'm just thinking from the whole concept of like know better, do better, grow, mental health, all of these things, and when we talk about discipline, and if we're thinking of, you know, teaching our kids and helping them grow, what are we teaching them when we're spanking and when we're asserting power over them? And are we teaching them, or are we soothing our own frustration in those moments a lot of times? And I'm just thinking of like how intertwined all the topics are, because now we're talking to kids about know better, do better, empathy, restorative practices, all of these different ideas, but are the adults ready to have these conversations? Are the adults prepared to handle the bullying? Or are they just prepared to say, here's what you shouldn't do, you know, here's the presentation on bullying, but we don't know how to talk to you about it if it's actually happening. We don't know how to resolve these problems. We're just going to tell you guys don't do it. You know, and so all of these different topics are so intertwined, and it's hard for kids. A lot of the ones I talk to are saying, you know, you guys say
do this.
You guys say come and talk to you, or you say, speak up, and then we're told, we'll just ignore it. Don't give them the attention if they're bullying you.
Yeah.
Or they put the bully and the victim in the same room together.
Yes.
And the victim is terrified to speak up. And so I think we're in this space of, like, we want to know better, do better, it starts with the adults, right? I mean, we need to be prepared to have those conversations and not like as kids.
No, I agree. And oftentimes when you talk to an adult, it's this idea of, well, that's how I've always done it. That's how it's always been.
Yeah.
And we're not able to budge, and we have to get past that. Because we
Yeah, I
need to grow.
agree. I was spanked.
Yeah.
I was spanked, and I'm okay. Here I am.
Yeah.
But like, know better, do better.
Yeah.
I don't want to teach my kids that.
Evolution. We have to evolve a little bit.
Lord.
Like a lot of this sums up to the fact that if you were okay being spanked, that's because as the person who was abused, you get to decide if it was abusive. The abuser doesn't get to decide if they're abusing, right? If you're abusing, you don't get to be the one that calls it, saying, oh, I'm not abusing you, right? If it's happening to you, you can decide if it's okay or not. You get to decide that. But how is that happening if you're hitting your kid? Are you asking them, hey, are you okay with this? Or you think this is going to be abusive? I mean, it's great everybody who got spanked is feeling good with it, but...
Well, I didn't say that.
Well, that's because you have the power to, so to sit there and say, well, I hit my kids and my kids came out fine, but you get to actually decide that it was okay for you to do that, because you were the abuser, you were the potential abuser, you don't get to pick that was okay. And there's this interesting story going around on social media, and you probably heard it, about this little boy who does something wrong, and his mom says, all right, so you're going to have to get spanked, so you have to go out and find a switch for me to spank you with. And so he goes out, and he's gone a long time, and he comes back, and he's sobbing, and he doesn't have a switch, and he says, Mommy, I'm so sorry, I couldn't find a switch. Here, just throw this rock at me. Oh, because you know what? Hurting your kid is hurting your kid. It doesn't matter if you think it's a little swat, or you throw a rock at their head. You don't know what they feel like. You just don't know. So just think, I think you have to think about that, that the person who gets hit gets to decide if it was bad, not the person doing the hitting.
Okay, Sarah, is
Yeah,
that
it's real short.
Yeah.
All I want to say is that it's, and Dexter, we've said this in theater together, it's managing expectations and it's all problems are communication problems. The issues that I have with my son not behaving are him not understanding the world that we're in. So it's not about me, yeah, there are times where I'm like, I feel like I gotta react to this moment right now, but that's not when the work starts. You should be having conversations. Xander, if you don't stop doing that, you're going to go to timeout. If you don't stop doing that, you're going to get grounded. There is a managed expectation going into the discipline, which is that now you don't get your switch for tomorrow or whatever. It's communication, and it starts before the point where you have to go, you know what, I'm too mad to discipline right now because I'm going to spank my kid. Like, it starts way before that, before you get angry.
Yeah. I think it comes back to the whole idea that, as parents, we feel like we are the, overseer, and they are kind of underneath us, so to speak, and we have that right. So that's a whole nother topic. And y'all, I'm gonna let you go, and then we'll wrap this up.
Yeah, I'm trying to get this story. I agree with her. People come from all sorts of backgrounds, financial, blah, blah, blah. So, in different styles. It is, like, you don't have to take away maybe what they have to do. You know what I'm saying? So, but it's all about communication. I was saying to a child, and we love spanking, but there is a difference between spanking and abusing. There is a difference. And just with our culture, just the same thing, black people and white people. I'm just gonna say it. When I was in junior high, I had white girls tell me that they literally cussed their mother out, called them bees, MFers, all that. That's total disrespect. We would not have heard any of that in a black home.
They wouldn't have lived.
No. That's not
Boy, that's a general statement, of course. That was
not a teacher kid. If you put my voice, I think them
question about that, and again, we're gonna wrap this up, but my question with that is always, if a person feels as though they're going to get reprimanded a certain way, or certain things are seen as disrespect, will they always feel comfortable coming to you to say, well, and this is just a rhetorical question, just like the idea of, you know, if I feel like it's a chance that I may get hit, if she takes it or he takes it the wrong way, then I'm not gonna say anything, because it's just easier to not say anything, so I'll have to take that risk of possibly being hit. And then also, my question is always this, and I'll leave it here. Who gets to draw the line in regards to what's just simple, a little spanking and abuse? How do we draw that line? And that's the thing, because it can go from one to the other very quickly. I've seen it where you just get so mad. And then it's also, you know, where it's like, you know, I know sometimes, you know, it's this idea, sit still, but you hit me. Why? Right. Sit still, you know, don't cry. You know, I'm hitting you. So it's just, so that's a touchy one for me. So I know it's getting late, and I want to wrap this up because we can do a part 2. Being able to sit here, we've all had opposing ideas and thoughts here, and we still were able to express that respectfully and in love, I believe. I believe that this is what it's all about in regards to, you know, breaking bread and having that type of unity and village and community where we should be able to have tough conversations, because these are hard conversations, right? And it's some things where you can say something, and if I oppose it, I can see you differently, right? Where it's like, ooh, I didn't know she thought like that. Well, we all come from different perspectives, different backgrounds, different ideas, and we're at different periods in our life. You know, like I said, being a single parent, I saw things totally different than, you know, I do right now when my kids are grown. I can say, okay, bye, see you. You know, I mean, it's different. So we evolve and we learn, but I truly appreciate each one of you all for being here today and having these conversations and being able to do it in a respectful way. And also you all too, and being able to, because these are tough ones and they can really evoke some emotion, right? And some passion. I like to call mine as passion when I get really worked up. So I appreciate that. And I do have some giveaways. I was supposed to give out raffles. I forgot. So what we're going to do is we're going to kind of figure out a way to give away some giveaways real quick. And I just want each of our panelists to just give a parting word or like something that you know reflect on what just happened today. And we're going to close up. Thank you, Rodney, for being the mic handler. I appreciate you. Go ahead and take it.
Oh man, of course I get the first one with the mic in here. Thanks. That was purely self-serving. I don't know, I guess in closing, I just want to say it's really great to I was chuckling when Aaron sent out the list of topics. It was like, well, why don't you put something on there that's like really divisive or something? I mean, it's just this list of everything, the toughest things. And I gotta say, to spend the night actually talking about it instead of actively avoiding the topics and talking about it in a civil way and really diving deep is good and it's healthy. And I really applaud Erin for everything that she's done to kind of bring us together.
Yes, I was very, very glad to be invited as well, participate in this. The issues that we talked about are big. I often talk to some of the kids tonight. I tell them, how do you eat an elephant? And most of them stare at you like, what kind of question is that? How do you eat an elephant? It's one bite at a time. Some of these issues are big, bigger than what any of us can handle. But if we take it one bite at a time, we'll finally get the answers. And that's where I think we really need to go.
Right, you should have took a bite out of like a cracker or something and stick it down.
What do I say? I'm just honored that you asked me. Because when you asked me, I'm like, what can I bring to the table? And that's why I asked, I said, do you want research or do you want it to be authentic? And when he was like, authentic, I was like, that's me. but hearing different people's perspectives opened up my eyes to things as well. I'm not gonna lie, sometimes I was like, and then I was like, no, that's the way they see it. Let me show my, share my perspective as well, especially being a Black woman. We're not seen, we're not heard, we're not protected. So for you to open this up, I'm sorry, I'm crying. That touched me that you asked me. Because again, like I said, we're not seen, we're not heard. I know you do, and I see you coming. And I know from this, it's gonna be more spaces open up for Black women to be them, to not have to switch code. But just to be their authentic, raw self, and I thank you for that.
So I'll kind of piggyback what you said, but from a different perspective. The first time Aaron had me on the program, we were talking about Black Lives Matter and police, and I'm a retired police officer, so one of the kind of along the lines of what you were saying is dispelling stereotypes, right? So I'm a large, bald, white guy, look like a jackbooted thug, skinhead, racist, whatever. I'm not, right? So it was fun to be able to go on the show and kind of dispel that, that stereotype. And we had another program where it was myself and Sheriff Chris Swanson from the Johnson County Sheriff's Department, and he talked about when he walked with everybody at the Black Lives Matter protest. And so that's one of those things where at first sight, everybody tries to paint a picture of you or paint you into a corner, and that's not how it should be. And we need to be able to listen to each other and have this kind of dialogue. And I enjoy it very much, and I appreciate Erin and what she does with her program. And it was a pleasure to be here. Thanks.
I have been retired now since 2017, after having worked from the time I was 15. So about 60-some years I worked. In my primary career, I was a problem solver. So I got to talk a lot, and I did a lot of public speaking. And I have missed these conversations. I've lived in Denver, Colorado, Idaho Falls, Idaho, Morgantown, West Virginia. Now, along with Houston. Those two places, I was a novelty. So I essentially have given credit to God for sending me to those God-forsaken places. For the purpose of having conversations and introducing white people to Black people, because there were very few of us. And so this has been fun to me because I, throughout my career, enjoyed introducing non-Black people to who we are as a people, and people of different religions and cultures. I was a chemist and worked in the nuclear weapons industry, so I had bunches of people wondering, how the hell did she get in here? Okay, I was a manager, so I was in top management, so I wasn't just an underlay. So I got an opportunity to talk to a whole bunch of people that was way up there, that just figured that, and the people at the bottom. I had an awesome, awesome time, but I only attribute it to God sending me to those places, because I wouldn't have went to those places if I had been right now. But thank you so much, Erin, for allowing me the voice and being able to kind of have some fun, and also listening a lot to what's going on. I'm Erin's aunt, by the way.
No, like everyone else, I really appreciate having this time to talk and to biggest problems with everything going on is that no one is telling the truth. You talk to someone, you're afraid of what they're gonna say and then how they're gonna think about you, and then none of our grievances actually get aired out there. And then you're voting on policies based on just a bunch of random stuff. It's really hard to do that without that. But I do think that conversations like this are very important, but what about afterwards? We can sit here all day and talk about it, but what's going to happen afterwards? We can say that we need to come together with this common goal of making the world better, but are you going to look at me and say that, yeah, I think that Black people are being hurt and abused and all these other things, and are you going to try to do something about that, or do you not actually believe that? I think that's really important, but something else I want to say, but yeah, come back.
Well, I want to thank you for inviting me to be part of this, and I agreed because I think you're amazing, but really just because I think that it is our responsibility, and I'm so happy to see such a full room of people to bring civility back to our culture. And there is so much on social media where people disagree, and I learned a long time ago that maturity is a choice and not everyone chooses it, and that and we've seen a lot of that, haven't we? I'm appalled at grown-ups that say, oh, if you think differently than me, we can't be friends, because we all think differently. We all have very diverse backgrounds and so much to bring to the table, even though maybe we don't feel like it, because sometimes in your own life you don't feel that way. But I love that we had this time to chat and again, light topics, thanks. And but it's important because it's happening in our world. So I really was hoping to be part of something where we really modeled that so that people could see it, and now we can all go out and do a better job of having more discussion with people than just seeing whatever side maybe you may feel you're on or whatever, because I don't like that at all. But one of the things that I was raised with is that God gave us 2 ears to listen and 1 mouth to speak, so we should listen twice as hard as we should to speak. And I think if we all did that and really came to the table with treating people the way we want to be treated, that we could really help heal our world. So thank you for giving that and being part of that process.
I just wanted to come on because, number one, I have mad love and respect for Aaron. And because I believe, as John Lennon said in one of his songs, I don't see problems, I only see solutions. There are all kinds of solutions to the problems we have. It's about dropping our egos and coming to the table honestly with open hearts and love, and realizing that what makes us common makes us stronger as a society, and that we just need to come together and break the false dichotomy that we have right now, that it's this or it's that. It's not that. Break that dichotomy and break the wheel.
I did remember. I guess I can share one thing. For me, and I agree with it to some extent, but it's really hard for me to agree and respect and try to still be friends with something that I really disagree with. Like, you can say that Michigan State's better than Michigan, I'll still be your friend. But if you're like saying that, like, I don't want to bring anything more to the discussion, but you're saying like gay people don't deserve to be married and things like that. Exactly. But like that's super hard for me to respect you and still be your friend. And I don't know. I still think discussions like this are super important, but I think on the other hand, we have to stop turning the other cheek every single time and actually get down to it. And,
Thank you so much. And Aaron, I did want to just share something real quick, because I thought about something when you said what happens after the discussion. Really quick, it was a guy I was talking to. He was told me clear out that he didn't like Black people. He was a white supremacist. Okay, we had a conversation, just him and I, and we talked. He grew up in Saginaw. He was a poor white gentleman that grew up in Saginaw, one of the only white people in his community, as he said it, and he was bullied a lot. Bullied every day, okay, for not having Jordans and all this kind of stuff, blah, blah, blah. And what he told me was that, and that's why he didn't like Black people. Do I agree with a person not liking like a whole group of people based on something? Of course not. But did I understand why he did it? Of Of course I understand why, we look at the people that mistreat us and we don't like them, right? But the reason why I say that is that after that, I talked to him, he thanked me for listening, right? And for me, even though I don't know where his life is right now, I don't know what he did, but for me, I look at it like, in that moment, because of that conversation, he saw one Black person that cared about him, that showed him some empathy, that showed him love. And for me, that's the next step. So some stuff does come from having those conversations at times. We may not see what comes from the seeds that we plant, but I believe that this right here plants seeds. And that's why I believe in what we do, because sometimes you just don't see it. It's not grand, it's not huge. You know, you don't have this big epiphany sometimes with some people, but he can walk around and know that one person that looked like me gave him some care and gave him some love. And that's what's important to me. And that's why this is important. So I thank you all for being here today. Truly do, from the bottom of my heart. Like, I was so overwhelmed with joy today. I'm sorry, I cried a lot. But it comes out because, you know, you can believe in yourself, right? Believe in yourself, you pump yourself up. But when your village comes out, your community comes out and shows support and believes in you, it means a lot. So I appreciate that. So I want to give it to you, panelists, a gift for being here quickly. Lisa. She'll put these in order, right? Oh, you do?
Yep.
Oh, good. How are we gonna do it? Tell me.
Magic.
Okay.
It's all numbers and stuff.
Okay, awesome.
Have to hand stuff out.
I want to get these graphics out because I want to let everybody know the community, man, they came together. Doing stuff. The community came together and gave donations so that we could sow back into the people that sold into us. So I'm very appreciative of that. She's not here. That's okay. Kelly, for you, for what you're doing. Laura V, for you. It's not much, but it's something. You guys can come up and get it if you want. Laura B, I saw you here somewhere passing notes.
I do.
Class. Okay, yes. Mo, my Mo, where is he? Laura B, thank you. I appreciate you so much. Laura, like, don't let me poke with my crown. She has so much to help out, so I appreciate that for getting this started. Jared, thank you.
Yes, I am.
Sarah. I know. You don't like recognition. Thank you. Giselle and the band. So everybody, I have DJ them in an envelope so you guys can, each one has one. Giselle, thank you all for coming and lifting your voices and I'll put it in y'all hands later then since you won't come up. So we do have a raffle real quick. I'm sorry, I just want to make sure I give this up to everybody. How many things are there? A lot. Okay, sorry. Okay. So we have a $25 gift gas card.
That is going to Amy Katz.
Woo, Amy! A $50 nails with Taylor at Cooper and Company. Trisha Fergie. Trisha. Oh, $25 Starbucks gift card.
Jennifer Austin.
Can you guys hear me? I'm talking about $25 Amazon card.
Sue Williams.
Sue.
I got plans for plans.
$25 live oak gift card.
That is Jen Rotanos.
Awesome. And then we have a $50 gas card.
That is Jessica McFarland, who I think left
you. Jennifer, no, that was we did that already. Let's do. Oh, bless it. Listen, it was a last minute thing and it was a good idea, but how we executed it may be a little sloppy. So thank you for holding. Nicole Rickard, okay, $50 gas card. Nicole. Mary Kay stuff. Denise Westport. So we had a mindfulness, two mindfulness sessions in here with V and Phoenix. So whoever wins this, Jocelyn Cholsky. Oh wait, no, never mind. It's next to Tammy DeRuiter. Ryder. Awesome. Starbucks coffee and mug something. That is Tony Etney. Tony. Oh yeah. Another Starbucks coffee and mug. Courtney Soul. Starbucks mug. Kevin DeLuke. All right, then Jan Lantern. All right. Kirsta Mann. Yes.